At 3:17 a.m., deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, something catastrophic happened. There was no explosion anyone could hear, no distress call, no final message sent home. Just a violent pressure shock, brief, sharp, and then silence. In the world above, nothing changed. Planes continued crossing the Pacific. Ships followed their routes, radios played music. But nearly 3 miles below the surface, a Soviet nuclear submarine carrying missiles, code books, and secrets powerful enough to tilt the Cold War vanished without a trace. And for 6 years, almost no one knew what happened next. Because this is not just the story of a lost submarine. It's the story of how the CIA attempted something no nation had ever tried before. Stealing an enemy's nuclear submarine from the bottom of the ocean in total secrecy without triggering a war. This was Project Azorian, and it was completely insane. In early 1968, the Soviet ballistic missile submarine K-129 left its base on the Kamchatka Peninsula for a routine patrol. The mission was simple on paper: sail into the Pacific, remain hidden, and maintain nuclear deterrence. K-129 was part of the Soviet Union's second strike capability. If war broke out, submarines like this one would be responsible for launching nuclear missiles at the United States. But something about this patrol was already wrong. The submarine was behind schedule. Some crew members were reportedly reassigned at the last minute. Others boarded without proper rest. The vessel itself had experienced prior mechanical issues. Then, sometime in late February or early March 1968, K-129 disappeared. No radio check-ins, no position updates, nothing. At first, Soviet commanders assumed a communications failure. Then they assumed navigation trouble. Finally, the unthinkable possibility emerged. The submarine was gone. The Soviet Navy launched a massive search operation. Ships, aircraft, sonar sweeps across thousands of square miles. For weeks, they searched the Pacific relentlessly. They found nothing. By April, the search was quietly abandoned. 83 sailors were declared dead. Officially, the story ended there. But halfway across the world, another country had been listening. Unknown to the Soviets, the United States Navy operated a classified underwater listening network known as SOSUS, Sound Surveillance System. It was designed to detect Soviet submarines by listening, not seeing. Hydrophones placed across the ocean floor captured acoustic signatures from incredible distances. On March 8, 1968, SOSUS operators recorded something unusual, a sharp acoustic anomaly. It wasn't the sound of a weapon. It wasn't an earthquake. It was consistent with a deep-sea implosion, the kind that occurs when a submarine hull fails under extreme pressure. By triangulating the signal, analysts narrowed it down to a location roughly 1,500 miles northwest of Hawaii. The United States now knew something the Soviet Union did not. They knew where a Soviet nuclear submarine was lying, and more importantly, they knew it might be reachable. When intelligence officials began analyzing what K-129 likely carried, the implications were staggering. On board were nuclear warheads, missile guidance systems, encryption machines, possibly even Soviet codebooks. This wasn't just wreckage, it was a frozen snapshot of Soviet nuclear doctrine, preserved in darkness. Recovering even part of the submarine could allow US intelligence to understand how Soviet missiles were armed, targeted, and launched. It could reveal how secure their communications really were. The value wasn't measured in dollars, it was measured in strategic advantage. But there was one problem. The submarine lay nearly 16,500 feet below the surface. No nation had ever recovered anything remotely that deep. In mid-1968, after the Soviets ended their search, the United States quietly dispatched the USS Halibut. Originally a missile submarine, Halibut had been converted into a deep-sea intelligence platform. Its weapons were removed and replaced with sonar arrays, cameras, and experimental equipment. For months, Halibut crawled across the ocean floor. Then finally it found something. A debris field, metal fragments, twisted sections of hull, and at the center of it all, the remains of K-129. The submarine lay broken, cracked open, its missile compartment shattered, yet large sections appeared intact. Photographs were rushed back to Washington. The impossible suddenly looked difficult, but possible. The discovery triggered intense debate at the highest levels of the US government. If the mission was discovered, the consequences could be catastrophic. The Soviets could interpret it as an act of aggression. Diplomatic fallout was guaranteed, military escalation was possible, but the opportunity was unprecedented. President Richard Nixon approved the operation. It would not be run by the Navy. It would be run by the CIA. The project was classified so tightly that even many senior officials didn't know its true purpose. Its code name, Project Azorian, the CIA's proposal sounded like science fiction. They would build a ship so large it could secretly lower a mechanical claw to the ocean floor, grab a Soviet submarine, lift it inside the ship, and sail away. No explosions, no divers, no witnesses, just engineering. The ship would have to look civilian, innocent, boring, and that's where Howard Hughes came in. Howard Hughes was a billionaire industrialist, aviation pioneer, and professional eccentric. He was famously unpredictable and famously private, which made him perfect. The CIA approached Hughes with a cover story that matched his public persona, deep-sea mining. The official explanation? Hughes was funding a ship to harvest manganese nodules from the ocean floor. In reality, the ship was being built to steal a submarine. It was named the Hughes Glomar Explorer. Publicly, it was a mining vessel. Privately, it was the most complex salvage platform ever constructed. The Glomar Explorer was enormous, over 600 feet long and weighing more than 50,000 tons. Its most important feature wasn't visible from the outside. Hidden inside the hull was a massive internal chamber called a moon pool, a flooded space open to the ocean below. Through this opening, engineers could lower a giant mechanical claw, codenamed Clementine. Clementine was designed to grip the submarine's hull and lift it vertically, section by section, into the ship. The entire operation had to be invisible from the surface. Soviet spy satellites passed overhead. Soviet ships patrolled nearby waters. One mistake would expose everything. By 1974, after 6 years of planning and construction, the Glomar Explorer sailed to the recovery site. The cost of the operation exceeded $350 million, over $2 billion in today's terms. For days, the ship held position using advanced dynamic positioning systems, keeping itself perfectly still over miles of open ocean. Then the descent began. Pipe by pipe, the claw was lowered. Each section added weight. Stress, risk. It took days to reach the bottom, then contact. As the claw began lifting K-129, something failed. Under immense stress, parts of the submarine fractured. Large sections broke away and fell back into the abyss. Inside the control room, engineers watched telemetry data in silence. The mission was partially failing, but not completely. Despite the failure, a portion of the submarine was successfully brought aboard. Inside were missile components, engineering systems, and human remains. 6 Soviet sailors were recovered. The CIA quietly conducted a burial at sea, filming the ceremony and playing the Soviet national anthem. The footage remained classified for decades. The intelligence recovered remains partially classified to this day. What is known is that the operation provided valuable insights into Soviet naval technology and nuclear procedures. In 1975, a journalist uncovered hints of the operation. The CIA refused to confirm or deny the story. Their response became legendary. We can neither confirm nor deny. It became known as the Glomar response. Project Azorian was over. The submarine was never fully recovered. Project Azorian was a failure and a success. It pushed the limits of engineering, secrecy, and intelligence operations. It proved that even the deepest oceans were no longer beyond human reach. And it showed just how far nations were willing to go without firing a single shot to gain an advantage in the Cold War. Somewhere beneath the Pacific, part of K-129 still lies in darkness, silent, waiting.